So anyway, there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we have to start at Dedollar. Actually, first, we have to start at the biggest crime in history, the biggest one you could possibly think of. No, it's not murder one. No, it's not rape of a child. It's somebody is driving over the LGBT rainbow crosswalk and they're leaving marks and people. This is intolerable. Here we go.
Police are searching for the driver caught doing donuts, damaging the Progressive Pride street mural. Just after 2:40 Wednesday morning, a vehicle is caught on a security camera doing donuts, damaging a Pride mural on Central Avenue in St. Petersburg. Tire marks still visible on the street.
My reaction is disappointment.
Man on the street. It's St. Petersburg, right? It's probably Nazis. Oh my gosh. Jeepers creepers. Russian Nazis. The whole thing is like, it's parody. We have gone into parody. We live in a Saturday Night Live skit. Honestly, Donald Trump is president, or was president, is president. Reuters is reporting this exclusive. This is Dedollar. It's big news. It's big news. India's reliance to buy oil in roubles, sources say, and Reuters, can be trusted sometimes. Sometimes they report facts. This seems to be one of those times. But that's interesting with regards to the impact on everything else, because if the greenback, if the United States dollar is not the world reserve currency, if people can now buy oil in rubles or whatever their local currency is and they don't have to deal in US dollars, then other countries are going to stop holding US dollars to buy oil in, right? And they'll just start dealing in their own currency or through the BRICS currency. I don't think most people care. And if strings come attached with the US dollars and fewer perceptible strings anyway, come attached with the BRICS dollars, maybe you say to yourself, yeah, it's like I'm shopping grocery stores here, right? Like I've got no allegiance to Zayres. We're going to wherever else we're going to, right? Loblaws and Zayres are the same, right? I don't know. Whoever. I'm not lobbying for anybody. So it's interesting. We'll see how that all works out. Who knows at this point in time? It's still early days, but it seems to me that the US is hyper-focused on Ukraine, and they're not as focused on things that are actually threatening their actual power, which is monetary and fiscal dominance as the world reserve currency, right? And they're not responding to that. They're like, you know what's really important? Ukraine. Okay, sure. Let's talk about finances, because finances set up the next series of tabs, which is invasion. And I think foreign is going to go after unions, but foreign is kind of tied up in invasion as well. Maybe I'll bring it back. But first, we have to talk about the fiscal stuff, because what's happening in Canada is setting the stage and getting worse. But it's not, it is a mosaic. It is a cumulative effect of multiple bad policies. It's not just one thing. Like yesterday, I was saying, it's not just that you go out for lunch. It's that your breakfast is 400 calories more than it should be, and you have a snack at 10 o'clock, and then you go out for lunch for like a 2,000 calorie lunch with beer and alcohol included in the 2,000 calories, and then you have a snack at 4 o'clock, and then you have dinner at 5:30. That's the reason. It's the mosaic. It's not the lunch that's the problem. It's all of it that's the problem, right? And so that's the issue in Canada. It's not just the invasion that's happening that's destroying things quickly. It's the fact that the monetary fiscal policy of the country is wholesale removing money from the country in a whole bunch of different ways, sneaky ways too. And so we're being made poorer. There's less resources in country, and we are funding foreign wars and things like that. And we don't have the resources to make sure our citizens can cover the basics like food and rent and all of the rest of it. Shelter, rent and shelter, the same thing, but you get my meaning. And that's a big problem. That's a huge problem. And what are we doing about it? Bubkiss. We're not doing anything about it at all. We're making it worse. We're allowing our politicians at every level to make it worse by saying, oh, what can we possibly do to house all of these extra people who are here? What could we do? Put them on a plane and deport the illegal ones first. That's the number one thing we could do. Stop bringing in people we can't house second. Maybe, right? Easy. CBC Watcher is responding to this. Joe Oliver says the Trudeau Liberals have eroded all 5 pillars of prosperity. And they're making it worse through their policies, okay? So this is just a quote, a small quote from this article. Trudeau seems increasingly disconnected from reality and fixated on maintaining a perfect losing streak, doubling down on big government, high taxes, and hostility to resource development. So yeah, they hate Canada and they hate Canadians, it seems like to me. Economics say the pillars are spending restraint, low taxes, minimal regulation, sound money, free trade. Ottawa is 0 for 5. Sure is. Yep, sure is. We are on track for big problems, even bigger problems than 2008, because it's just bubbling under the surface. Like in 2008, you could afford rent, probably. I could afford rent, and I knew friends who could afford rent, and the money wasn't inflating the way it is now, right? And CTV News is reporting more Canadians only making minimum payments on their credit cards. What does that possibly mean? Here's another little anecdotal bit from CTV News this time, or maybe the last one was CTV as well, but it doesn't matter. They say a new survey suggests more Canadians are willing to stay within the country for their next vacation. Canadians are running out of money, says Tom Quiggin. He says we're broke. We don't have any money left, right? We're living on credit card debt and minimum payments, and we're having staycations, right? Is this 2008 all over again? Holly Doan says, and sneakily getting money out of the country. Foreign wars, yeah, sure. Foreign wars are one way. Pensions. Now, pensions your money. It's your money, right? Like you've worked for that money. You should get that money wherever that you decide to live. But I think it's weird how many former MPs, et cetera, are living in Mexico. Old age security checks for Canadians living abroad cost taxpayers more than $686 million last year, up 11% from 2022. I don't know. There's nothing keeping me in Canada. I'm moving to Mexico. Payments went to 154,678 pensioners living in the US, Mexico, and overseas. So bye, Canada. Bon voyage. But I'd really like that money. And granted, it's your money. You worked for it, right? Your pension is your pension, and you can get it wherever you want. I figured you'd get it deposited into a Canadian bank and then take it from there. But do they actually just direct deposit into your foreign bank? Can you do that? Does that happen? Does anybody know if that happens? Because that's convenient. I mean, it's your pension, but also it should go into a Canadian institution, right? No? Yes? Because anyway, right? It should. I think it should. Canada's National Firearms Association is reporting this. This broke yesterday, but they wanted to wait for a source. Great find by the Gun Blog and Caliber magazine. It looks as though a government grant of $206,000 was awarded to the anti-gun lobby to continue propagation of disinformation, misinformation, and ideological sensationalism. So Runkle the Bailey, and Ian Runkle, he's the guy who runs a lawyer blog talking about Canadian law and things like that. He's fun. He's entertaining sometimes. And he says the government is paying groups to lobby against you. That's exactly what's happening. 100%. Yes. And it's happening not just at this level, like at firearms level, right? But it's happening at the union level too. And I'll show you that in a minute again. And I know I showed you at the beginning of the show, but it's important, so I'll show you again. But it's happening all over the place. And Pierre Poilievre says, don't worry, we are going to have, what's it called? A dollar for dollar law. So if you want to spend $1, you have to reduce $1 from the budget. So you can't increase spending. But what's he going to cap it at? What we're spending now? What we're spending during the Harper years? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, this is what he says. He says the Trudeau Liberals spent, and now Canadians pay the price with soaring mortgage payments. Common sense solution, cap spending with a dollar for dollar law to fix the budget and bring down inflation and interest rates. So yeah, I mean, there is probably a fix for all of this, but everything I've read says that the fiat currency is dying. Its buying power is being eroded. So that's why in the 80s, houses cost $70,000, let's say $80,000. Like $200,000 house in the 80s was, you were a millionaire. You were like, holy cow, $200,000, because the interest rate was really high. But regular people, were getting by with $2,000 a month salary and interest rate of, 15% or something like that, an $80,000 house. So it's interesting how the way our economy is run and managed, it seems like they have infinite room. But the infinite room is just like, okay, your dollar is going to be worth less, but you're going to be able to buy roughly the same amount-ish. No, it's worth less. So you just have to have more dollars, but the percentages of what you're spending will be roughly the same amount, and then that gets all out of whack too. And then they start coming up with different metrics to make you think about it less. Milk at one point, like you used to get a pack of cigarettes for less than $3, and now it's like $15, right? You used to be able to get like milk for, I don't know, $2, I think. You could get by for a lot less. We're spending percentage-wise a lot more of our salary on necessities. But again, percentage-wise as well, we have more disposable income now than I think probably in the 80s. But I don't have a study in front of me. It's very interesting, the evolution of money and watching on one side, people talking about the benefits of something like Bitcoin, and on the other side, people manipulating money in a way that keeps a population docile and not worrying about it, right? Like there are fundamentals that are going to happen whether you like it or not, whether anybody likes it or not. But it seems like there's kind of magicians' tricks that can be waved by economists. Haha, there we go. I got it that time. That can change the dynamic. Like if house prices go way, way, way high, you just drop the interest rate to roughly achieve the same level of payment that you had before, right? Like all of these little tricks are used to make sure the population is not too upset about everything. But look at the changes in our society, even from 10 years ago, right? Like, so we're being manipulated and we don't notice it whatsoever. And it's really crazy. Okay, let's talk about an invasion. Mr. Sunshine Baby says, okay, can someone please explain to me what the actual F is going on with immigration in Canada? And I'll get this lady here to explain it, and then we'll come back to the longer post that I'm going to read after that.
Yes, illegal
I didn't touch anything. Here is this lady, and she's talking about how illegal migrants get $224 a day, and she says they really, really do. They really do. Here we go.
Yes, illegal immigrants are receiving $224 each per day. So let me break down all of these numbers and where I got this information from. So this is a document from the Government of Canada where they explain what goods and services illegal immigrants in Canada are receiving. When I say illegal immigrants, I mean foreigners who have claimed asylum in Canada but have not yet had their applications reviewed by immigration authorities. So in the document, they say the average accommodation cost is $140 per night per immigrant and $84 a day per immigrant for food. So that ends up totaling $224 per claimant every day. But keep in mind, this isn't including any essential items that immigrants get at no cost, such as toiletries, medicine, diapers. And what's crazy is that the federal government is giving 10 times the benefits to illegal immigrants than benefits to help Canadian seniors. And this is all happening while actual Canadian citizens are struggling to afford basic, like the bare minimum, like groceries, gas, rent, school.
Right? So she's got a point. Pinky says mass immigration will have future effects that people don't see yet. Great reset to destroy existing system, then globalist system will be developed. Something was created to destroy what people owned at the same time, then people will accept reluctantly what they are offered. Centralized health care records, digital ID, unemployed caused by mass immigration. If you're jobless in your hometown for years without income, North Pole forest coal mine need workers to work there and live in a 15-minute city. If people decline, bank accounts and credit scores are affected. There was a job vacancy with 1,000 applicants, 999 people unemployed. If the jobless people are offered to work in Africa or South Pole, will they accept to go or stay with starvation or homeless or poor credit score? Mass immigration will replace us. Better to see the whole picture. Max is good. Support him. He can't tell us everything. True. I think that there's a lot of this that they're highlighting that it could potentially come to fruition. Like, oh, you can't find a job here. Well, we're gonna switch you to a place where you can find a job. And sure, it's backbreaking, terrible mine work, but somebody's got to do it. So you'll go work in the cobalt mines in Congo, and we'll bring some Congo people here, and they'll be your city administrators because racism, right? So I think that that's certainly something that is on the table because, wholesale control and slave labor everywhere. Why not, right? Yeehaw. They could pull it off in Africa for a real long time. Holly Doan says, no chance of Housing Minister Sean Fraser will reach the target of 3.9 million new housing starts by 2031. Residential Construction Council of Ontario tells Commons Committee. Yeah, everybody knew that. We're watching his failure every single day. Every single day that 1,061 homes doesn't get built is a day that underlines he's a failure because he can't get anything done. Because the promises he makes are not realistic or achievable. So there you go. But they want to make these promises because it sounds, they think it sounds good, I guess. Leslyn Lewis is talking to Sean Fraser, the housing minister. trying to hold him to account, asking how many in your budget, she says, your government referenced $4.4 billion for new housing. How many houses is that built? And he says, that it doesn't build houses, but our partnerships do. And he can't explain how. So here's just a short clip of these two.
Without addressing this, and no homes have been built. Isn't that correct, Minister?
No, that's not correct.
But that's actually on page 45 of the budget. How many houses has been built as a result of that $4 billion that you reference?
The specific funding leads to systemic changes that will have an impact over time. The communities that we've partnered with have indicated that over the next decade, they expect an increase in building permits issued of 750,000 across Canada.
Your government's goal is 3.9 million homes in 2031. That's 1.096 homes must be built every minute. That's 65 homes per hour. We've been here just over 30 minutes. Has your government built 32 homes in the last 32 minutes, Minister?
My view is that people who would suggest a problem is impossible to solve shouldn't try to interfere with the person who's trying to actually solve it.
Weak. Absolutely the most ridiculous, stupid response to a pertinent, on topic, very, very specific question. The only way you're going to achieve this promise that you've made is by building this many homes. Have you done that? Well, you shouldn't be criticizing people who are trying to solve problems. Get out of here, you shyster. It's a used car salesman who got caught, and now he's trying to deflect. Give me a break. Toronto Sun's reporting Mark Miller increases cap on applications for Palestinians to join relatives in Canada. So we're getting 5,000 instead of 1,000. Yay. I told you, says Kirk, that the Liberals won't stop at 1,000 visas for Gazans, and they won't stop at 5,000 either. Remember when they told you that the people they bring in need to be supported by relatives and here for 3 years, temporary visas? They lied to you. It's only 1 year and taxpayers will be supporting them afterwards. These Gazans can also get study and work permits right away. Here's how it will work. Their temporary visas will turn into other visas and different sponsorships to citizenship. Many will go home and have a bunch of kids. And because they have established their 3-year connection to Canada, as Liberals recently announced, all their kids will have automatic Canadian citizenship. The country will add even more people from a population that overwhelmingly supports terrorist groups, as if the current terrorist flag-waving genocidal slogans and playing speeches by terrorists in Canada streets isn't enough. Good luck, Canada. Canada pledges visas for 5,000 Gaza residents related to Canadians. Bull poop. Concerned Canadian says, Mark Miller has confirmed that he's bringing in an additional 5,000 refugees from Gaza. I understand the humanitarian crisis and our role. However, personally, just as a quick aside, this is me speaking here, not the tweet, the understanding the humanitarian crisis and our role is bullshit. Bullshit. Not our country, not our war. We have no military. We have absolutely no say in the matter. It's a Middle Eastern issue, an Israeli issue, Palestinian issue, not a Canadian issue, not our issue, not our thing at all. We could maybe send aid, maybe. But even that is rife with problems. And who gets the aid? How do we confirm that it's not being stolen? I mean, just that alone would say there's too many insurmountable logistical problems for us to entertain the idea of sending any money into that quagmire. And bringing anybody out is a suicide mission. Like bringing anybody out to live in Canada to save them. I remember the trope in the 90s and the 2000s where the girl would, like this was on TV shows and things like that. I think it's probably mirroring reality, but the girl would date the bad boy because the girl liked the bad boy, but she wanted to change him into a good boy. And that was like, 90210, the first 2 seasons, Brandon and versus Dylan, right? I'm sure I've got other examples, but you see what I'm saying? And then the bad boy would mistreat the girl, and the girl would think that they did something wrong, and then the girl's friends would say, no, you didn't do anything wrong, he's a bad guy and you should dump him, and blah 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 blah. And it feels like our government is the girl and the bad guy is flooding our country, and we're the friends who can't do a damn thing trying to convince them, please stop handing over like everything to this terrible person who's abusing you. And so that's where I feel like we're at, and it feels like this keeps playing over and over and over again. The humanitarian crisis is on our doorstep. It's here now in Canada. We are dealing with the humanitarian crisis here We don't have a responsibility to fix something that isn't our country, that we have nothing to do with and no say in. So we shouldn't send any money there. We shouldn't be funding any of this. We shouldn't be helping, because we're not helping, right? We're harming. Harrison Faulkner says, as far as I can tell, the only MP to voice disapproval so far of this call to give permanent residency to illegal immigrants is Kevin Vuong, a former Liberal MP and current independent. What's stopping Conservative MPs from joining Kevin here and speaking out against this? And Kevin says, my parents spent 2 years in a refugee camp before being welcomed to Canada. They didn't want to be there, but they respected the rules. There must be consequences when people break the law. Granting permanent residency to line jumpers is unfair to all who've waited and encourages more violations. Yep. Here is, if people speak out about this. So hold on, I've got one other tab to show you. Hold on. Sorry, I'll get back to this tweet here. He says, what vetting has been done? What skills do they have of the migrants from Gaza? Where are they going? Is there housing available? Do they have relatives here? No, there's no vetting, by the way. Countersignal, and there was another group that was publishing this as well. I think it was Globe and Mail, and I thought I had both, but it turns out I didn't have either, or we'll come upon it in the rest of the show as we go through. But Countersignal is reporting, Immigration Minister admits Canada doesn't require criminal background checks from temporary residents. The Liberals hate us. So all of these people coming in, they're not going to be doing any kind of vetting. Where are they going to go? Wherever. Toronto, probably, right? That's pretty crazy stuff. Here's Harrison Faulkner, and he says, still trying to wrap my head around the justification that we are given as to why the Conservatives won't speak about immigration. We are told that they don't want to be labeled as racist by the legacy media before an election. Doesn't that just make them cowards? Yeah. Maxime Bernier responds. He says, a big chunk of the fake conservative establishment are leftists who in fact do support mass migration. The others who don't but won't say anything are indeed cowards, opportunists, and frauds. Yeah. Yep. We're being invaded. Here's Harrison Faulkner again. He says, the Migrant Rights Network is on Parliament Hill demanding that Justin Trudeau give all illegal immigrants in Canada permanent resident status. All of this is ironic. They're claiming that the invasion of Canada that happened through British colonization, right, was bad, but now they're just fine with taxpayer dollars being used to bring foreigners here and steal Canada as it is now from the people who built it into the modern country that it is. The fact that they don't see this is hilarious and sad. Here is just a little bit of this because it's intolerable to listen to. Here you go.
I'm speaking to you from the unceded and never surrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabeg peoples, and my pronouns are she, her, elle. So I'm here today to show union solidarity with undocumented workers and their families, women, 2S LGBTQI, plus migrants, all who have been living in fear of being detected and being deported. Undocumented people live here and build our communities and our economy. But without status, they are vulnerable to abuse and exploitation. And growing racism and xenophobia are making them even more vulnerable. Employers can violate the rights of undocumented workers, stealing wages, forcing them into unsafe working conditions, stopping workers from asserting their rights under the threat of deportation. This abuse results in an overall worsening of wages and working conditions for migrants and citizens alike.
Oh, the migrants and the citizens. So we've got to worry about the migrants first and then the citizens. Give me a break. Unbelievable, right? And if you notice, if you say not in my backyard, buddy, the Liberals and the Conservatives will crack down on you. Okay, so Blonde Finn says removing gatekeepers means will increase them. Who's surprised? Polyev is setting up a NIMBY snitch line. The tyrant wants to destroy my neighborhood. He wants to devalue my house that I worked my lifetime to own. And Greg says I'm noticing things again. So the Liberals say NIMBYism, increase densification, speed up approval times, tackle NIMBYism, and establish inclusionary zoning bylaws, encourage the public transit-oriented development. And then here is with the Conservatives are saying, now I don't know if this is under the Aaron O'Toole Conservatives or if the document's been updated since Polyev took over. If it hasn't been updated, it's still up on the website, but it may not be valid currently. However, still accessible. Here we go. Conservative Party says they will withhold transit and infrastructure funding from cities until sufficient high-density housing and around transit station is built and occupied. Cities will not receive money for transit until there are keys indoors. So yeah, there's a whole lot of the similarities between the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party are undeniable. So that's problematic. And Pierre Poilievre says, under a common sense conservative plan to build homes, municipalities who build homes get money, who build more homes get more money, who build fewer homes pay a fine. So if you say we don't want all of these people moving into our community and we're not going to build any homes for you, then the federal government starts cracking down on the money that it gives you for programs and things like that. Maxime Bernier says, this guy is a wannabe federal tyrant who wants to blackmail municipalities into building apartment blocks to house the millions of immigrants he plans to bring in, which is exactly the same program as Trudeau. We're being bamboozled again, and people don't see it, and I wish people saw it, but like my little plucky show here is not going to derail the Conservative Party of Canada winning the next election. I wish it would, but people don't see it. They don't want to see it. They don't want to see that the elections are rigged. You know, if I tell people the elections are rigged, I can tell sometimes people believe me, sure. Other times people don't believe me, but they don't want to get into an argument with me about it because they just don't care that much. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can have a conversation with somebody and say, oh yeah, you know, elections are rigged, blah, 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 blah. And sometimes people will engage with you and, you know, want to know more, but other times people will feign interest and go, oh, and move on. And it's like, all right, like nobody's interested. So like, I wish we were. I wish we cared that we're sliding into communism, but nobody seems to really care. Nobody seems to even really believe it. And so that's kind of a problem. That's a barrier to getting anything done to stop it. You know what I'm saying? Pat is highlighting Nigel Farage, and he says this is happening everywhere. He says a large influx of young males coming from an entirely different culture has frankly had disastrous social effects. Nigel Farage describes the current migrant crisis as a national security issue. Yeah, and there's a bunch of examples that I've given for it being a national security issue over the last little while. And again, it doesn't seem like anybody cares. And not to say, like, I'm sure that there are people out there who care, but the general population, if you walk into a room, you and 99 other Canadians, if you started talking to those people, a lot of them wouldn't know what was going on. A lot of them wouldn't believe you if you told them the truth. And even just talking about like the truth about immigration, the truth about what's going on in schools, the truth about what's going on in municipalities and provincial level politics with regards to sending money abroad, with the protests that appear to be protests by students but are actually paid for protests, they don't believe you or they don't want to know because the solution seems mean, I guess. You know, like deport them. Anyway, here's some crime that's going on. This is an interesting little tidbit. Harrison Faulkner again, he says, these men have just been arrested and charged in a major Peel region auto theft investigation. So it's Harmeet Singh, Valbir Singh, Gurpreet Dhillon, Asad Mayo, Jamaran Singh, Mohammed Sikhi, Birpal Singh, Birpal, Albajan Nura, Yoel Alam, Ethan Brown, he doesn't look Canadian. Well, I mean, he could look Canadian, I guess, but he doesn't look like he was born in Canada necessarily. He just has a Canadian sounding name. Asfelt Harik, Florent Blacku, Tamid Kizi, young person, 17-year-old, Clawans Saint Florent, and Guljinder Singh. So, seems not great. Do you want to know what else? They were all out on bail already. Or not all of them, maybe not all of them. 14 out of 26. Michael Barrett, who's an MP, says, no wonder car theft and crime is skyrocketing after 9 years of Justin Trudeau. 14 out of 26 suspects were out on bail because of Justin Trudeau's catch and release justice system. Time to end house arrest for convicted criminals and keep repeat offenders in jail. Do you think that's going to be the format for the gulag? Like, they'll let you live in your house. You'll have to pay rent for your jail cell and all the rest, but you won't be allowed to leave. But if you leave and don't commit crime, nobody's going to bother you very much about it. Like, it seems like more of a prison for the mind than anything else. Like, they'll just wear you down that way. I thought this was an interesting little story. Cities facing challenges finding sites for homeless shelter. So the province in Alberta wants to fix this in Saskatoon, and they asked Saskatoon to come up with a space for 2 shelters for 30 people each. And so they can't find that shelter space, and that's the point of this article. But again, my opinion, firm opinion, is we don't solve this problem by creating jobs in human services and having the city administer shelters. We solve this problem by dealing with the root of it and removing taxes on development, like for building of homes, removing the city's ability to levy development charges or levy development taxes on developers, deport illegals, deport, have a program to remove anyone who is not a citizen. Anybody who's a temporary worker, who's having a hard time, you pay for a plane ticket home. Sorry about your hard time, buddy. It's terrible, that hard luck. Lucky that we care enough about you to send you home. Bye-bye. See you later. Because why should we pay for you month to month when you can't get your crap together? See ya. Bye-bye. Maybe your family will help. Hopefully your family will help back wherever you came from. See you later. We'll pay for a ticket home. There's the Hercules, right? Until then, you can hang out in the hangar right there. And I mean, maybe, I'm not trying to punish people. I'm trying to reasonably administer limited resources, because there's one taxpayer, right? And it's Canadians, not foreigners. And if the foreigners are here to help improve Canada, and instead of improving Canada, they've fallen on hard times, well, that's terrible. That's an awful, terrible story. Bye. Bye. See you later. This is a good time to go home. See you later. Right? I don't think that we should be doing this. The other solution is make housing super cheap, so that the only reason you don't have a house is because you don't want a house, an apartment or something like that, right? Make food so cheap that the only reason you're not eating is because you're on a diet, right? Make energy so cheap that the only reason you're not running a farm is because you're damn lazy and you want your chocolate cereal in a box. Thank you very much. Okay? If you've got a recipe, somebody said you should just take cocoa powder and make all cereal chocolate. If you've got a recipe for that, I don't know if I can sprinkle cocoa powder on like Lucky Charms, but I'm willing to try it. Shake it up in the box, you say. Okay, I can see that. I can make chocolate Lucky Charms. Okay. I've got a plan. Okay, we'll give it a shot. But fundamentally, solving the problem is not targeted money handouts to people that you want their votes. That's a vote buying scheme. Solving the problem is identifying, hey, chocolate cereal seems to cost too much. How can we solve that problem? Let's take taxes off of gas. Okay, yay, now we solved the problem and everybody can have as much chocolate cereal as they want. Instead, we're like, hey, let's import a whole bunch of people from India for no reason. And then people say, oh, I don't really want to, but I'm not going to say anything. And then here we are. In the UK, this is Naz Shah. She's an MP, and she's asking for people in the United Kingdom to vote for her. And so she says, this is her video to ask people in England to vote for her. Okay, this is not far away in Canada. If we have this already, please send me the examples. I'm sure we've had the Conservatives read speeches given by the leader in other languages, which we've had for a long time in Canada. So that's not so weird, but I think that this is strange. This stands out to me. Here we go.
तो अभी प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऋषि सुनक ने ऐलान कर दिया है कि हमारा समर इलेक्शन होगा, जनरल इलेक्शन होगा 4 तारीख जुलाई की 4 तारीख को.
Huh? I don't even think she breaks into English. I think she just does the whole thing in her own language. Here's what's going on in the United States. Defender of the Republic says, made some observations as I boarded a flight in Tucson, Arizona. At security, there's a line specifically for illegal immigrants that says no ID line. My assigned seat on the plane was taken by a migrant family, so I had to move seats across the aisle, not the window seat I paid for. There were several of these families on my flight, all with blue Five Below bags with envelopes. I managed to get a picture of the envelope, and what do you know? Their flight was sponsored by Catholic Community Services. I'd like to understand how it makes any sense that most people are required to show ID to board a flight, but when you're committed a crime and illegally across the border, you're not required to show identification and then provided free air transportation, a major expense to the rest of us. Why are we paying? Why is anybody paying for this? It's insane. Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to canadapoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful